are. Thank you so a little late, but we never start. Oh, yesterday, and I believe it's December. Goodness. Welcome, guys. Let's go ahead and Bonnie. Oh, one of the things that the title from this I borrowed. I'll be real honest with you. Borrowed the message. Go back and actually different one. Any honest with you, mostly about faith, about changing hearts, and they talk Christ and celebrating His birth. I'll be honest with you, it's not modern English, so it's a little, but it's worth it because it's one. I think it'll give. Tonight's message is called. We're going to be called "Ghost of Christmas," and we're going to look at some things. Christ, that's all in. Notice that thing get really stressed. I have friends of mine who are absolutely in tears, gotten all their Christmas presents. Die, okay. I've had to stop some of that out way before. Generally, people who are close to me know that I haven't bought your Christmas present yet. Last week, right before Christmas, Shopping. I hate shopping. Magnify for a lot of people, loved one, or they've got a guy who's dealing with drug addiction, or they're just Christmas just seems to magnify the hurt. So I'm going to talk about something that you probably. I'm so offended. Pours more as me. Box today. I'm offended. Hide my safe place and um. Oh, and we all know people like that are really offended. They get their food to them, and they're harassing them and attacking them. I realize that I live in a society now. I read the other day, and you guys know who Batman is. Well, the old average Batman movie. I don't know that I'll see it. Black. Black, obviously, democracy and government has decided pro democracy, pro. Therefore, they have demanded people change costume from black to a different color. I'm not kidding. I wish I was. In my mind, it's like you've got to be joking me, right? Batman wears black. Anybody who's seen Batman knows Batman wears black. Batman's been wearing black since the first Batman movie and always wore black. Well, actually, there was a period of dark blue. That was in the 60s. Batman from the 60s had a little. The rest of the time, he wore black. He's always worn black. So to think that's my point. There's some of us who get very offended about certain. Don't realize how ridiculous would be so offended. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, there are things that frustrate me. I'm pretty glad a lot to get to me. There are certain things that really disturb me and talking about this person and start letting little things drive in a car somewhere, right? As you're driving, this person up and they can't traditional wave to say thank you. I didn't say thank you. driver and you're a nicer guy than me, get irritated about it. If it's Christmas, baby, you just cry. Little things can often know that part of that is people little things get to you. Remind you something, folks. Life is too short, and just no way about that. What I want to look at tonight is Art said whenever Proverbs 19:11 says a glory to overlook an offense. What I want to talk to you is about when we get offended, what we're saying. I have a right to that. You're unable, you owe me. I'm more important than you. Offended is a thing about pride, period. A person's wisdom yields patience. One's glory to overlook an offense. All of a sudden, you've got men with offenses get offended about your dog peed on my grass today. Oh, heaven forbid, I'm calling the police. I'm going to have your dog arrested and I'm going to have it in jail. Dog. Oh. I'm being ridiculous for a point. The purpose here is to talk. I agree with that. By people murdering. Somebody destroys the at it them, but God doesn't allow sin in his presence. That's the only thing, because they're they're a believer, not a believer. How do you think your testimony plays across when they come at you and they say, "Well, I'm sorry, I ate one of your out," and you start cutting and raving, "Oh, those are my potato chips, and I bought those potato chips, and they're so hard to buy, and I'm so hard to find them, and you can't eat my potato chips without." How do you think that goes across as your witness? How does that go across as your testimony? Here's this person who's supposed to be a believer. Love. Believers as love for one another. What does that say if we live offended? We don't trust God. We don't trust him. We don't believe he's in control. There is nothing that's going to happen to me out of God's hands. Child. Everything's got to go through him to get to you. He allows a circumstance. He allowed it. Nothing can happen to you that God isn't. Nothing. Good, bad, or indifferent. Does that mean that everything that happens to you is good? No, we live in a world that's full of sin. We live in a very corrupt, very evil world, and we are cross and rose again. The truth is that if we're offended by little things, that say about your faith? I have a friend of mine, and I love this guy dearly. I'll tell you right now, I want to tell him about people cutting him off in traffic. Nice guy, take him out of a car. I personally think that the best of the car, he is like he's possessed by waves, and he screams. And more than once, I've caught him screaming, raving at things, going off on something because you have a right to the road. And I get into and I'm offering you some ridiculous. Do the same thing. I'm saying we do it too. Off on them because we think, oh, I've got a right. Guys, let me remind you something I've settled. What goes to your Christmas past? Well, what goes to your Christmas past? The problem is you want to be in control. Gathering up the offenses. Did this to me, and this person did. Charge it up until all of a sudden you got this huge list. You guys have ever seen it? There's carry a bag around clothes and all this ended because they stole them. Ah, they're my pineapples. Take them, stop. And in fact, they called over the course of time. After, and I love the book too. Over the course of time, realize that how can you get offended about something? God's pineapples. Kind of funny because they found God. They're God's pineapples. Bad? God. Stopped being offended about the things he had no control over. Stop being offended. That is the point. A thing to live a life that's constant. talked about the little things. That's something that we deal with every reality is far many of time of year and trusted somebody and they lied. Open gifts with a closed. Hope that you don't celebrate the love. That's why in this what is life? Life. We're here for a little while and at the most. I think I've heard some that's unusual. We'll get into discussion of at the most. You're going to spend eternity yesterday, and it's all by God to go into this world to preach the light of the world. We're called to be the salt of the earth. Reflect the love of Jesus when we come. Not be the hands and feet of Jesus. Not be the salt of the earth. You cannot be the light of the world. Not be. We're here. We are called out in front of our lobby lighthouse in the dark world. That's why this church exists. All of our church, the light first to set the tone and to overlook an offense. forgiveness is not something. When somebody is hurt, believe me, I know there are some of us in here. Talk to some of you, and I know I'm not going to be low enough. Box at him until he You can get over that about it, and we just God have control. I don't know, Bill. I have no idea. Oh, there it goes. I think I finally got it going again. Anyway, whatever. I apologize for this. You're on live stream YouTube trying to watch me see this in silence. Take the time. You just seek God. God. Let Him be in control. I mean, that's the whole point. That's our whole problem. We think we've got to do it. We've got to do it all. And God says, no. You don't have to forgive that person. You let me forgive them through you. You let me love them, and you allow the forgivenesses, the offenses to just go around you. You're mine. Forgiveness is not going to happen overnight. I understand that. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to snap your finger and suddenly you forgive everybody and you love everybody. You're human beings, and you're sinners, and you're saved by grace, and it takes time for God to transform you. I want you to look at this. Look at what Colossians 3:13 says. Make allowance for each one's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Look, guys, we don't forgive because we deserve it. We forgive because He forgave us first. Whoa, think about that. While we were yet His enemies, Christ died for us. We forgive, not because I deserve it, not because I have a right to this, not because of anything else, but because Christ forgave me first. Forgave me for things that I know that I did that were wrong, that were so brutal and so horrific. I mean, let's face it, folks. Your sin drove the nails through His wrist and His feet and hung Him on that cross. He forgave you for that. Name me something anybody's ever done to you that was as brutal or as horrific as what He did, dying on that cross for your sins. Or if they hurt somebody you love. Don't fall into that trap of thinking, I can't forgive them because of what they did is so bad and God just will understand. No, God forgave you when you put His Son to death on the cross. You're the executioners. So am I. We're sinners. We had to be saved, and the only way for that to happen was for Jesus to die on that cross for us. And so what we choose to do is say, God, this is yours. Person, I have a real struggle forgiving that person. You know what they did, God? I want to love like Christ, so I give it to you. In the state of Texas, there was a young man who was arrested on a DUI, and while he was drinking and driving, he ran over and killed a 17-year-old high school senior on her way home from church. Literally, she was one of the really nice kids who really loved Jesus and nothing more than to just share love of Jesus with everybody. Had everything going for her. Her parents were so excited. They were so, their daughter was one of those kids that you just dream about. The young man was drinking and driving, ran her down, and she ended up killing her. Texas law is pretty strict, and so he ended up in prison. 18 years old, never been in trouble with the law before, but he had a problem with drinking. He was raised around it. His dad was an alcoholic. His mom left him when he was 4. What he ever cared what happened to him, and he ended up in prison. He had no family. Nobody would come to see him. His own dad, who had his own problems with drinking, disowned him after he got arrested. The woman said, I wanted so much to hate this guy. I really did. I wanted God to strike him down. I read this. Allowance for each other's faults. And forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. And she said, I read that and I thought, God, I can't do that. This guy killed my daughter. I just can't forgive him. God remember, The Lord forgave you. You must forgive others. God, I can't do this on my own. I can't do this at all. Help me. Walk with me through this. And praying, pleading with God to help her forgive him. Finally, she started sending him letters, letting him know, first off, that she forgave him. Wanted him to know about her Savior. Eventually, they began writing each other back and forth, and they kind of became friends through the mail. So she arranged to go visit him in the prison. I mean, here's the woman, the mother of the woman he killed, going to visit him in prison, telling him about Jesus, how she forgave him. First time in his entire life that somebody even over the course of time serving his time in prison, which was almost 40 when he got out. He became a believer. And it's hard to be a believer in prison because there's a lot of phonies in there. There are some rare ones, truly, truly transformed, and I've known a few of them. This is one of those guys that was a real deal. He says, and he'll tell you this, she showed me love, showed me forgiveness, and I hated myself for what I had done. He can forgive me, then the God she serves must be bigger than anything I've ever seen. The Lord forgave you, you must forgive others. He got out of prison. She actually picked him up in the parking lot, helped him find a place to stay, helped him get plugged into a job, goes to her house on Sundays and has dinner, and she treats him like it's her son. In fact, she tells neighbors that she didn't lose a daughter, she gained a son this way. Daughter's in heaven, and she knows she'll see her again. Now, this man, saved because God used her to lead him to Jesus Christ. The Lord forgave you. You must forgive others. Really don't forgive because they deserve it. It's not a matter of what they did, it's a matter of what he did 2,000 years ago on that cross. He died, he forgave us. He is our example. I don't know what bad things have happened in your life. Maybe you've had a spouse betray you, or maybe you were part of a church and they hurt you. You know what? Way to learn to be forgiving. I know God has called me to forgive you no matter what you've done. I have been forgiven a lot. And I want to reach the point where I can freely forgive in a way, in the same way that I've been forgiven. How do we forgive something that seems so unforgivable? In the same way that Christ forgave us. Everyone who has offended me, I try to raise my soul so high that the offense can't reach it. The very thing that was holding me back for so long will hold me no more because I'm growing closer to God. The closer we get to Him, the more we look at Him, the lower offenses in this world don't hold me back because life is too short. And the big ones, I can turn over to Him. I'm not going to rehearse it. I'm going to release it. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to pass it over. And in time, God works. You can say, I'm over it. It doesn't hold me back anymore. I've learned to forgive. Because of God, I'm over it. It's His doing. What Joseph of the Old Testament did. I mean, think about it. His brothers threw him in a pit and were going to kill him. and ended up selling him into slavery. He got there and he ended up being accused of trying to assault his master's wife and ended up in prison. Eventually, God brought him before the Pharaoh. Pharaoh made him second in command of all of Egypt. During the height of the drought, the same brothers who had tried to kill him, the same brothers who had thrown him in prison, showed up. And he could have been like some of us, so angry, so unwilling to forgive. God was in control. He tells us what you meant for bad, God meant for good. God has put me in a place to protect our family, save a lot of people's lives. What he allowed you to do. He recognizes his brothers, and does he act? Does he react? Does he get mad? Does he start ranting and raving and threatening to throw him in prison? No. He sends away his guards and falls on them crying. God turned what they did to good. My God used it for good. And maybe those circumstances that you're so frustrated with and so offended by, God's going to use it to make something good happen in your life or good happen in the lives of others. I'm not going to let it slow me down. I'm going to turn it over to him. I'm doing what God called me to do, and I'm so over the past. There are those of you that I believe in the presence of God, he's going to do a healing work, and you're no longer going to be under the curse of something that happened in the past. You're going to be able to let it go, and you're saying with God's help that I am over this because you allow me to be. See, Colossians 3 has the better way. It really does. Look at what verse 15 says, and let the peace of Christ be ruling in your hearts. The only way in which you will be completely joined together, let the peace of Christ be ruling in your hearts, as it was the purpose of God for you to be one body and give praise to God at all times. As the Amplified says, and let the peace from Christ rule, act as an umpire in your hearts, deciding and settling with finality all questions that arise in your minds. In that peaceful state, to which as members of Christ's one body, you are also called to live and be thankful, giving praise to God always. Live. That's what he's called us. We don't forgive because they deserve it. We don't forgive because bother us. It is a conscious choice to say, God, I give you control over this. I don't own those pineapples, Lord, they're yours. Yes, God, I know that the Nazi soldiers executed my family. They took my father and my mother and my sister. All died in a Nazi concentration camp. Corrie ten Boom nearly died in Auschwitz. She wasn't a Jew, she was a Christian, but she was helping Jews escape the Nazis, and she was arrested for it and threw in prison. Her family died there. Only member of her family to walk out of there. She said that years later she was downtown and she saw the prison guard so brutally attacked and hurt so many people. Standing in the square and looking confused and miserable. Saw her coming and he knew who she was. Pretty recognizable. Fell on his feet, fell on his knees and begged her forgiveness before she got within 50 feet of him. Telling her that he knew what he had done is wrong and he had just gotten out of prison and he knew and he didn't deserve her forgiveness, but he begged for it anyway. Down,
asked if she could pray for him. And he sat right there in the street, former prisoner, brutal prison guard, prayed for him. Ended his funeral. Years later, become friends. Because she chose to let God forgive him. Those we are forgiven, we don't deserve. There are those around us who don't deserve our forgiveness. God said, "Know you're my disciples by your love for another." Time to turn the offenses and take the ghost of Christmas past and put him in the past. Let him go. Say, God, I surrender this to you. Let's close in prayer. Father, I realize that the words are so much easier to say. I know that. I know that we are so undeserving of your mercy. I know that as well.